morning, everyone. My name is Janjelin Angoro. So the topic of the Group 3 is all about developing and using tests and related topics. So my part that I will report for this morning is all about principles of test development. What is the principle of test development? So test development or test construction, it is a refers to the science and art of planning, preparing, administering, scoring, statistically analyzing, and reporting results of tests. We have 5 principles of test development. Number 1, measure all instructional objectives. Number 2, cover all the learning tasks. Number 3, use appropriate test items. Number 4, make tests valid and reliable. And number 5, use tests to improve learning. Number 1, measure all instructional objectives. So it means that your instructional objectives are measurable terms that describe what learners will be able to do after the instruction. Say for example, as a future educator, we must measure all our instructional objectives into specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, evaluated, and reviewed. Number 2, cover all the learning tasks. The teacher should construct a test that contains a wide range of sampling of items. In this case, the teacher can determine the educational outcomes or abilities that the resulting scores are representatives of the total performances in the areas measured. So example, you should not make an exam or assessment that are not part of your learning task. Number 3, use appropriate test items. The test items constructed must be appropriate to measure learning outcomes. For example, you teach grade 1 students, so you should give them an appropriate test items, which is the diagnostic test and composed of 40 items. Number 4, make test valid and reliable. The teacher must construct a test that is valid so that it can measure what it is supposed to measure from the students. The test is reliable when the scores of the students remain in the same or consistent. Number 4, make test valid and reliable. The teacher must construct a test that is valid so that it can measure what it's supposed to measure from the student. When can we say that our test is valid? Whatever the content of the lesson, those content are reflected into the test items. The test is valid. Say for instance, the teacher instructs that the coverage of the exam comes from the module 1 until the module 3. But the one that came out of the exam is a module 1. That is not a valid exam. Reliable. The test is reliable when the scores of the students remain the same or consistent when the teacher gives the same test for the second time. Say for instance, if the teacher wants to know the reliability of the exam, all they have to do is to administer the same test and let's try to look the scores of the students. If you are going to compare 2 scores, if set of scores from set A to set B, if you notice that the scores of the students are the same, so your exam is reliable. What's the purpose of the test development? So the purpose of test development is to provide teachers and learners with reliable and useful information.
Fundamental types of tests and their purpose. So one of the type of a test is selective type. And when we say selective type, it is always provide a choices for the answer. It is often referred to as objective test. By the way, when we say objective test, it has a right and wrong answer and so can be marked objectively. So again, it aims often referred to as objective test because it allows for an unbiased self-scoring system. Selective type aims to assess a specific part of the learner's knowledge using questions which have a single correct answer. So, in short, selective type is unbiased when it comes to set scoring system, since selective type provides choices, and among those choices, there's only one specific or single correct answer only. That's why we can say that selective type is unbiased. And here are some examples of selective type. First is the multiple choice. I know that everyone are already familiar with this, what we call multiple choice, since very common way back then, every time we took exam. Yeah, but still, let's define the multiple choice. It consists of a stem which describes the problem and 3 or more alternatives which give the suggested solution. The incorrect alternative are the distractors. So, the purpose of this is used to test factual recall, levels of understanding, and ability to apply learning, analyzing, and evaluating. It also used to measure students' ability with regard to specific content area. So, again, multiple choice consists of stem, response alternative, and correct answer. So, for example, I wrote a question, what is the largest planet in our solar system? So, what is the largest planet in our solar system? There is already our stem. Then, the right answer is Jupiter, right? Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. So, let's say that Jupiter is A. So, Jupiter A, the A there is the what we call the correct answer. While let's say the B is Uranus, C it is Neptune, D is Pluto. These 3 are our distractor, or what we called response alternative. So that's what multiple choice consists of: the stem, response alternative, the distractor, the 3 distractor, and the correct answer. Next, the second example of selective type is true or false or alternative response. So, consists of declarative statement that one has to mark true or false, right or wrong, correct or incorrect, yes or no, fact or opinion, and the like. So the purpose of this true or false or alternative response used to measure the student's ability to determine whether or not the statements are correct. And then there are 3 forms, true or false or alternative response: the simple, complex, and compound. So when we say simple, it consists only 2 choices, yes or no. If the statement is wrong for you, then write no, something like that. Then the complex, more than 2 choices, and the compound, 2 choices plus conditional completion response. So statement is true, write true, but if the statement is false, write false. And then if false, what makes it false? You need to put the correct answer if the statement is wrong, something like that. And that's what we call compound. 2 choices plus conditional completion. And then next, the third example of selective type is the matching type. So, matching type consists of 2 parallel columns. Column A, the column of premises from which a match is sought, and column B, the column of response from which the selection is made. So the purpose of this matching type is used for measuring the ability of students to identify a connection or relationship between 2 things. So to remind you again that matching type under a selective type, since it provides a choices from a column A, which is the premises, to column B, which response selection is made. Another type of test is the supply test. So supply test requires students to supply or construct their own responses and answer. The purpose is to organize learners' knowledge, to express ideas, and measure the learner's generalized understanding of a subject. So one of our examples is short answer. Short answer usually direct question that can be answered by a word, short or phrase, a number, or a symbol. So the purpose of this is to test the ability of the students to remember and apply knowledge. So again, short answer can be answered by a word. For example, question is, what is the body's largest organ? And you may answer skin, right? So the skin is answered by a word, right? So skin is already the short answered by a word. And for example, for a number, 1 plus 1, 2. So the 2 there is answerable by a number. So that's it. And so on for phrase and symbol. Next is the completion test. Another example of supply test is completion test. It consists of an incomplete statement. The completion test items require the student to answer a question or to finish an incomplete statement by filling in the blank with correct word or phrase. So the purpose of this completion test is to test lower levels of cognition of the students and checks whether key facts have been memorized. So completion test usually required to supply a missing phrase, word, or a letter in the written text that are and this is what we call fill in the blanks. For example, national anthem. The Lupang Hinirang. So they say na bayang magiliw blank nagsilanganan alab blank sa dibdib, something like that. So you are the one to fulfill what's missing in the line, or fill in the blanks, or something like that. So, and that's for a selective type and supply test. Together, see your examples and to be continued.
Good day, everyone. My name is Rachel Jane Villadora, the third reporter from Group 3. The third type of test is essay test. A classroom essay test consists of a small number of questions to which the student is expected to demonstrate his or her ability to recall factual knowledge, organize this knowledge, and present the knowledge in a logical, integrated answer to the question. In this type of test, the teacher will generate a number of questions, most frequently open-ended questions, that require students to compose a response in the form of one or more sentences using their knowledge and understanding of the subject matter content. When we say open-ended question, it is a question that cannot be answered with a yes or no response or with a static response. Open-ended questions are phrased as a statement which requires a longer response. They usually begin with the words like why, how, what, describe, or what do you think about. The essay type of test will test the student's ability to think critically and express their ideas accurately in order to recall factual knowledge, organize this knowledge, and present it in a logical, integrated response. That's why it is important for teachers to apply effective teaching strategies to ensure that their students have really learned, and at the same time, students must also focus their attention in learning the lesson or topic so that it is easier for them to recall the knowledge and for them to be able to answer the test prepared by their teacher. The purpose of the essay test is to test students' knowledge and understanding of the content, as well as to test their reading and writing skills. Also, it is designed to assess higher order thinking skills or critical thinking skills of the students and provide them with relatively more authentic experience. So, it is crucial for teachers to assess the knowledge of the students about the content being discussed in order to determine whether the students have learned or not and if the learning objectives are being met. This will further help the students in improving their reading comprehension and writing skills, as well as to provide them with an opportunity to express their views on a particular phenomena. There are two types of essay test. First is the restricted response, and second is the extended response. Let's talk about first the restricted response. Restricted response is a type of essay test that limits the content of the response by restricting the scope of the topic. This means that students' responses should be limited within the subject matter content only. The purpose of restricted response is to enable students to recall information, organize it in a suitable manner, derive a defensible conclusion, and express it within the limits of the posed problem. An example of restricted response essay question is list the major political similarities and differences between U.S. participation in the Vietnamese War and Persian Gulf War. Limit your answer to one page. The extended response is a type of essay test that allows students to select any factual information that is pertinent to organize their answers in accordance with their best judgment. In this type of essay test, students can use any factual information as long as it is relevant to the question or topic. The purpose of extended response is to allow students to determine the length and complexity of the response. This means that students have a wider freedom of organizing their ideas in the way they want, and they also have the control with regards to the length of their responses. An example of extended response essay question is compare and contrast the presidential administrations of Marcos and Duterte. Consider economic, social, and military policies. Now let's proceed to the qualities of good tests and related tools. The first quality of good tests is validity, which refers to the extent to which the test serves its purpose or the efficiency with which it intends to measure. A test is said to be valid if it measures what it claims to measure. For example, if an intelligence test does not measure intelligence, then it does not serve its purpose for which it is designed. Therefore, any measuring instrument is valid to the extent that it measures what it is supposed to measure. The second quality of good test is reliability. Reliability of a test refers to the consistency of the test with repeated trials. It shows the extent to which the results obtained are consistent when the test is administered once or more than once on the same sample with a reasonable time gap. Simply, if a test gives the same result on different occasions, it is said to be reliable. For example, if an administered test provides almost same scores to examinees on two different occasions, then the test is highly reliable. On the contrary, if the test provides different scores for examinees across the two different occasions, or the two administered tests, then it shows the poor reliability.
Qualities of good test and related tools. So, fairness in qualities of good test. So, a test item is designed in such a way that should be free from culture biasness. So, that culture has an advantage over other cultures. Let for example, if ang imong estudyante from other culture or estudyante nimo nga Muslim, then you have questions or instructions sa imong test nga against sa ilahang belief. So, if you ask them, dapat fair tanan and treat student as equal, and doing is so in way that within that culture dili mag-include og mga questions or instruction nga na ay bias. Objectivity CV Good in 1973 defines objectivity in testing as the extent to which the instrument is free from personal error or personal bias. So that is subjectivity on the part of the scorer. So in this context, there are two aspects of objectivity which should be kept in mind constructing a test. So the objectivity of scoring and objectivity of test items. So that objectivity of scoring means same person or different persons scoring the test at any times arrive at the result without may chance error a test be objective must necessarily so worded that only correct answer can be given to it. So the best example of objectivity of scoring is kaning multiple choice exam, as there is only one right answer and the scorer's bias cannot affect the outcomes of whether the student gets the answer right or wrong. And objectivity of test means that item must call for a definite single answer, while constructed test items should lead themselves to one and only one interpretation by students who know the materials involved. So it means the test item should be free from ambiguity. So kaning objectivity of test item included diriya ang multiple choice items or true or false, matching type, simple recall, and numeration. Scorability and qualities of good test. It is the quality wherein the test can be scored in a simple way and at a quickest possible time. So, ang paggamit ng K in marking para ang test sheet na imong checkan ay higit pa o mas gamay na lang automatically, and without subjectivity, it save us great deal of time. Mas mapadali imong pag-check in a simplest way and simplicities the work of the teacher with help of scoring K. And to be continued by Miss Jane Kanata.
Good day everyone, I'm Miss Jane Kanata and I will be the one who continue the report of Miss Gertrude Jane Ladora and Algin Pia involved. So, adequacy is the test should contain a wide range of sampling of items to determine the educational outcomes or abilities so that the resulting scores are representatives of the total performance in the areas measured. So, it is also the state of being sufficient for the purpose concerned. A careful test maker should never assume that the instrument he constructed is capable of measuring all the factual knowledge or skills that a pupil has acquired in school. So, a test should have a wide range of sampling items to collect the adequate measurement of the certain areas that are measured. So, in order to assess the learning of the students, for instance, you might conduct oral questioning or group discussions, and in this way, it will be as if you were assessing the students' comprehension through these inquiries. So a good test should include items from different areas of materials assigned for the test. Another example is dialogue, comprehension, grammar, vocabulary, dictation, and handwriting. So the test should cover the whole syllabus. The next qualities of a good test is administrability. It means that a test can be administered with clarity, ease, and uniformity. Also, the direction is simple, concise, and clear. For example, in AC types of test, the instructions should be specific so that the test can be administered with clarity, ease, and uniformity to all students so that the scores obtained will not vary due to factors other than differences of the students, proctors, and even the one who will check the test or the test scorer. So this means that a test could be given with clarity and easy given that directions given are simple and concise. Practicality and efficiency. Teachers' familiarity with the methods used, time required for the assessment, complexity of the administration, ease of scoring, ease of interpretation of the test results, and the materials used must be at the lowest cost. So, the teacher should be knowledgeable enough on how the test will be graded. He or she should know the methods that will be used, on how long will it take to assess the test. Teachers' familiarity with the methods used is teachers need to familiar with the assessment know the strengths and limitations, therefore they can properly interpret students' responses. The next is time required for the assessment. So, for example, in multiple choice test, it takes a long time to prepare but relatively short time for students to complete and for teachers to score. The next is complexity of the administration. So assessment that requires long, complicated directions and setup are less efficient. Then ease of scoring need to match your methods and purpose. Ease of interpretation of the test results. So you need to provide sufficient information so that whatever interpretation is made is accurate. Next is must be at the lowest cost. So the methods used and the time required for the students should not be costly, but it should not affect its quality. For example, the materials used for the assessment should be at the lowest cost possible, but it should not affect the measurement of the performance and should still attain the learning outcomes.
Consideration and test item development. First, we have choose appropriate item types for your objectives. In these objectives, it should be depends on your learning objectives. Let's say perhaps, if you are a teacher, you want the students to articulate an economic argument, then multiple choice questions are difficult choice because they do not require a students to articulate anything. Even multiple choice questions might effectively assess a student's ability for them to recognize logical economic argument. Second, we have highlight how exam aligns with your course objective. If you are a teacher, you need to identify which course objectives the exam addresses. This type of exam assesses your ability to use sociological terminology appropriately and to apply the principles we have learned in the course today. In addition, it helps to see how the components of courses align in the test, and it will see your ability in performing well in the activities, how relevant, experience, and knowledge. The third one is write the instructions that are clear, explicit, and ambiguous. If we say clear, you need to have a good text and a proper way in making a test paper in your student's test exam. You have to make sure that the students know exactly what is the point and what you want them to do. It should clear about the expectation that you may think is necessary. Otherwise, the students should learn and may take assumptions, then run them into a trouble. Next, we have write instructions that review the exam. Students' testing skills may not very effective and leading them to use their time poorly during an exam. The student should read the instruction first and to be know and well prepared about asking questions by reviewing the format of the exam as well as the criteria and questions type and point value. By this method, the teacher must have 10 multiple choice questions and each should worth 2 points. Then an easy question should be worth in 15 points.
Word questions clearly and simply. Avoid complex and convoluted sentence constructions, double negatives, and idiomatic language that may be difficult for students to understand. And also, in multiple choice questions, avoid using absolutes such as never or always, which can lead to confusion. Next is enlist a colleague or teacher's assistant to read through your exam. Sometimes, instructions or questions that seem perfectly clear to you are not as clear as you believe. Thus, it can be a good idea to ask a colleague or TA to read through or even take your exam to make sure everything is clear and ambiguous. Next is think about how long it will take students to complete the exam. When students are under time pressure, they may make mistakes that have nothing to do with the extent of their learning. Thus, unless your goal is to assess how students perform under time pressure, it is important to design exams that can be reasonably completed in the time allotted. One way to determine how long an exam will take students to complete is to take it yourself and allow students triple the time it took you, or reduce the length or difficulty of the exam. Next is consider the point value of different question types. The point value you ascribe to different questions should be in line with their difficulty as well as the length of time they are likely to take and importance of the skills they assess. It is not always easy when you are an expert in the field to determine how difficult a question will be for students, so ask yourself, how many sub-skills are involved? Have students answered questions like this before? Or will this be new to them? Are there common traps or misconceptions that students may fall into when answering these questions? Needless to say, difficult and complex questions types should be assigned higher point values than easier, simpler question types. Similarly, questions that assess pivotal knowledge and skills should be given higher point values than questions that assess less critical knowledge. Last is think ahead to how you will score students' work. When assigning point values, it is useful to think ahead to how you will score students' answer. Will you give partial credit if a student gets some elements of an answer right? If so, might want to break the desired answer into components and decide how many points you would give a student for correctly answering each. Thinking this through in advance can make it considerably easier to assign partial credit when you do the actual grading. For example, if a short answer question involves 4 discrete components, assigning a point value that is divisible by 4 makes grading easier.
And now, I'm going to discuss the using technology in test development. Okay, importance of technology in assessing students. Technology become an indispensable tool for educational assessment in today's world. People are increasingly using digital technology like laptops, tablets, and smartphones. So, it means that technology is the essential tool that most teachers or even some educators in making assessment nowadays. Okay, here are some different tools that used in developing tests. Okay, the first one is the Google form. I know that every one of you or us are familiar of this kind of tool because some of us use this already, especially in our exams. Okay, Google Form is a free online tool which allows users, especially for teachers, to create forms and quizzes. It will help them to assess their students in class. Okay, furthermore, it can be used to give feedback to and receive feedback from students. Okay, another online tool is the Quiz Star Making tool. With the help of this online tool, you can manage classes, quizzes, and it also helps teachers to design multimedia quizzes in different formats, including multiple choice, true or false, and short answers. Next is the Hot Potatoes Test Making tool. It is an online tool which helps teachers to create an interactive multiple choice, crossword, or matching type. Question Writer HTML5 test making tool is another online tool that allows users to create simple tests. It will help for those who want to track students' results. Articulate Quizmaker test making tool. This kind of online tool will help educators to choose from 25 form-based questions type, including true or false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, and so on. iSpring Quizmaker test making tool. It is another online tool which help educators to create test quizzes. It will also help to assign homework as well as view students' score.
And now, I will be the one to continue the report of Miss Solibio. Different tools and developing tests. The fifth example is the Proofs Test Maker. It is an online quiz authoring tools that allows the creation and sharing of quizzes that are fun quiz authoring software. It is preferred by educators, trainers, educational institution, and even business. And we have the last tools in developing tests, which is the quizzes. It is an online assessment tools that allows the teachers to create and use another quizzes. After providing students with unique code, a quiz can be presented live as a time competitions or used for homework with specific deadline. I know all of my classmates are try this kind of platforms, which is the quizzes, and we found out that this form of assessment is challenging because per item has a time duration that and by that we need to develop our reading comprehension and to choose the right answer. All different tools in developing tests is effective and helpful in education to evaluate the students' learning from time to time. Using technology and test development, we have the advantages and disadvantages. First, the advantages. It enables to see, evaluates, and respond to students' work more quickly than can traditional assessment. It is easy for the teachers to give feedback in students' works or output, just like other teachers did to us. After receiving our scores, they give feedback and respond. By that, allows the students to aware and where they need to improve their output next time. Why using technology and test development is more quickly than traditional assessment? It is because in traditional assessment, the teachers check the papers one by one. And in using technology and test development, the teachers set the correct answer per item and it will be automatically checked. That's why it is more quickly than traditional assessment. Disadvantages in using technology and test development. We have three disadvantages. The first, the plagiarism. Second is the student's privacy. And the third is the preparation of time. First is the plagiarism. This is one of the biggest thing that the students do. If the teachers use technology in the test developments, the students can easily plagiarize the works of others or even cheating. A lot of teachers address this kind of disadvantages. That's why if the teachers give an activity or assessment using technology, the questions are analysis, situational, and essay. If the teachers caught the students plagiarize the works of others, the score will automatically zero. And lastly, the preparation of time. One attempt per students. In this, it contains challenge for the students because the teacher set a specific time per item or a due date. Students sometimes easily irritate because of the shortage of time. They They turn in their outputs late or simply escape the item or miss because of the unstable internet connection. I am Eleanor Digala, the last reporter of Group 3.